Okay, we're going to get started right now. On the airplane. He's going to Chaskilados, Chasna. Okay, Gewalt. So yesterday we learned
On the way back.
about okay. So yesterday we learned about Reb Shimon. Reb Shimon holds shchita she'eni ru'iyah l'shma shchita, and the shiloh was if someone steals a par of hektish and then shechts it, Reb Shimon said that you're chayiv dal v'hei. The Gemara asked on that, how could you be chayiv dal v'hei at the time of the shchita? A carbon still requires a zrika. So if the carbon still requires a zrika, then the shchita wasn't matter the basar b'achila. So that's a shchita she'eni ruya. So it should be a shchita. It shouldn't be classified as a shchita, and therefore the ganim should be pater and dal v'hei. Why does Reb Shimon say you're chayiv and dal v'hei? So the Gemara offered three terusim. The first teretz was Rav Dimi Amar Rabbi Yochanan. I'm just on the bottom of Ayin Vav Amar Aleph. Rav Dimi Amar Rabbi Yochanan said, "V'shoichet tmimim mibefnim l'shem bailim." The reason why it's a good shchita, because the shchita was shechted. Actually, I'm going out of order. So first, the Gemara explained that it was either tmimim mibefnim l'shem bailim, and therefore it's a kosher or carbon, and it was a kosher carbon at the time of the shchita, and then later it was nishbach adam, which means the owner never got his carbon back, so to speak. Therefore, this achiv dal vei, and on that the Gemara asks, when you do the shchita, it's still eini ruya, and the shchita is eini ruya shma shchita. Rish Lakish had a different teretz. Rish Lakish learned it was speaking b'shoichet Baalei mumen b'chutz, which Rashi learns is it was bedek abayis. On the Gemara's kasha here is when you shech it, you still can't eat it because it's still the animal of bedek abayis. You still have to be pointed. You still have to redeem it. So therefore, at the time of the shchita, either if it's a carbon, it still needs zrika, which is shver Rabbi Yochanan, or if it's bedek abayis, it still needs pedia. That was the Gemara's kasha. Zrika materis for shlokish, shchita materis. Pedia materis. I'm sorry. Shchita materis, zrika materis according to Rabbi Yochanan, and zrika materis for shlokish. I'm sorry. Zrika materis is a carbon based on Rabbi Yochanan's pshat, and Rish Lakish shchita materis for pedia materis. So the Gemara is mechadish kol oimid l'izrek kazarek dami. Yes, the zrika didn't happen yet after the shchita, but you're in a situation where zrika can occur. Since you're in a situation where zrika can occur, we already look at it as if it's zarek. And the Gemara proved this point from another halacha that Reb Shimon said. And he said sometimes noisor is metamatum oichlin because it got the shem of an oichel. And therefore it's an oichel, even though right now it's asur b'ana, you're not allowed to eat noise, you're going to burn it. So how could that be an oichel? If you shechted it early enough before shkia that you would have had time to do zrika, we look at it as if it was zarek already, and therefore it's an oichel. Even though it becomes nicer, and now it's no longer mutar b'achila or b'ana for that matter, it still could be metama tumas oichel. And when it came to pedia, how do we know that? Kol oimid liftas kapadudami, the Tanya Rab Shimon Omer, para metama tumas oichlin, hoyel v'hoysel ashas hakosh. A paraduma is oimid l'shreifa, right? You shech a paraduma, you do zrikas adam, not in the mizbech, you do it on harazdesim, and then you burn it to a crisp, and that ash is mixed with water, and that's the made paraduma. So the question is, would it be metama tumas oichlin? The para, when it's meat before it's burnt, would it be metama tumas oichlin? It's not an oichel. It was always destined to be destroyed. Zokt Reb Shimon, yes it is. You know why? Because even after you shechted it, you could have still changed your mind on it and been paid it and brought another paraduma. Why in the world would someone do something like that? It's a korban. How could you change it? Because if matzah acheres noimena, if after you shechted this paraduma, you found even a more beautiful paraduma, then you'll be paid this paraduma, and you'll actually go after the other paraduma, which is a very interesting condition because in all of history, there were 9 paradumas because they're very, very rare. What is the likelihood is that right after you shech it, before you make the zrika, before you burn it, oh, I just found another paraduma. Stop the clock, right? But alpha pekin, since it's possible that will occur, we say that it has the din of an oil. I'm sorry? Yeah. Only 9. So Zot Gemara, let's see Rashi now. Para matama, para aduma matama tumas oichlin, the havila shas hechsher lechoil, it could have been eaten at the time before it was burnt, and therefore v'yar dala toyos oichel. Now it's not after the zrika. Before the zrika, you could have still eaten it. You could have been it. Tosfos asks, and hopefully we'll have time to learn the Tosfos is these 2 rules contradict each other because you're saying that the paraduma before this riko you could have been paided because it wasn't designated as a carbon and therefore tanoichel, but kalai with lisra kasarak tummy. So by the time you shechted it, it's as if you already made this rika. So these 2 rules undermine each other. So that's one of Tosfos' kashas that we'll look at. But let's finish the daf first because I came late and I want to finish the Gemara and then we'll go back to see what the Baalei Tosfos toiled on overnight the night before they were killed. I didn't toil on that last night. I'm sorry? Yeah, but Reb Shimon holds that. Reb Shimon Shita. V'amar Shlokish said, Omer Hoyer Reb Shimon. So now I'm on the top of Ein Zayin Amud Beis. V'amar Shlokish. Omer Hoyer Reb Shimon. Reb Shimon used to say, Para niftis al gabe marachta. You could even shechta para when it's on the marechas, when it's in the process, when shechted. So this is a continuation. This is the Gemara illustrating what does it mean. So Rashi says, what shas hakosher are we talking about? The Omer Hoyer Reb Shimon para niftis afilu nishchata al hamaracha, even though it's shechted in its place. Kamishpat, the way it's supposed to be. If you found a better one. That is a sash kosher because it could have been niftis before this rika. V'aval pidaloi niftis, Lamaisa it wasn't niftis. Lamaisa went on to become a paraduma. Afilohachi mashvila oichla, it gets a designation as an oichel, hoyel uruya liftois, vibalt, it could be nifta. God. You see from here, since you could have been paid, it's as if you were paid and it gets a din of an oil. There were 2 terutzim, there were 3 terutzim, but there were 2 terutzim between Rabbi Yochanan and Shlokish how to explain Rabbi Shimon, even though he held shchita she'ena real loy shma shchita, this shchita of hekesh is shma shchita. Rabbi Yochanan learned that it was still a carbon. It was still a carbon, but you shechted it l'shem bailim. That's why it was a shchita ru'uya. But l'mais it's not kosher carry the bailim because the dam was nishpach, so it ended up not being accredited to the bailim. If the Shlokish says no, we're not speaking about a carbon. We're speaking about kedushas bedakabayis. So ma'isna what Bishlam. So look, Bishlam Rabbi Yochanan le'omer korban belongs. You know why? The kabay look with the masnisin afilu b'tamimin. He wanted to say that the animal that was stolen, that we're talking about, that was nishchat, is a tamim. And if it's a tamim, then it had to have been a carbon. So that's why Rabbi Yochanan wants to shtel ayin b'shachat tamimim l'shem bailim, where this could work even if it's a short tam. Ella, and not short tam lafukimut, short tam lafuki with a boom, right? Ella Rish Lakish, my time of Rabbi Yochanan. Why did Rish Lakish say Rabbi Yochanan's teretz? Why did he have to come up with this teretz? Amar Lach, you know why? Because he holds that tficha and mechira are linked. V'tavchay u'mecharei. Koleicha de'isei b'mechira. If you could be mechuyev, dalad v'hei, if you sold it under these circumstances, isei b'tvicha, you'll be chayev, dalad v'hei, if you shechted it under these same circumstances. But v'choleicha de'lesei b'mechira, if you would sell this animal right now, you wouldn't pay dalad v'hei, then b'tvicha, then lesser b'tvicha. You won't be able to be mechuyev dal vei even if you made tvicha. V'hana kachim, and these kachim, if it was a kachim on carbon, hoil the chimaz bin kachim, lo have a mechira. If you have a carbon that's Reuven's carbon that you stole, if you sell it, it doesn't change anything. It still remains in the resource of hektish. So it's impossible to do a mechira on such an animal. Since you cannot be chayiv on the din of mechira for this animal, therefore less nu b'tvicha, you would not be chayiv dal v'hei under these circumstances. Zogt Rashi, afilu b'tamimin, v'chos sheken b'balei mumen, v'chos t'shnu d'chikelu. He doesn't like Rosh Lakish's teretz that it's balei mumen. Lo have a mechira, you cannot sell a carbon. The ain kachim tamimin yotzim l'chulah. You could never be poida or sell kachim tamimim. Hilchach b'balei mumen and askinon. Therefore, Rosh Lakish says we must be discussing a balmum, the isnu b'tavayu, where both you could be mechuyev dal vei for mechira as well as for tvicha, as the Gemara says, "Vayter ba'azul l'tamayu." There's actually a machlokes between Rabbi Yochanan and Rish Lakish whether or not tvicha and mechira are linked. Rish Lakish holds they're linked. That's why he couldn't learn it's a carbon, because since there's no chiyah for mechira, there would not be a chiyah for tvicha. But Rabbi Yochanan holds they're independent. You could be mechuyev for mechira even though tvicha would be impossible, and vice versa. You could be mechuyev for tvicha even though mechira is impossible. The itmar, because we learned the machlokes. Hamoicher treifa. What if someone sells a treifa? The divrei Reb Shimon. So according to Reb Shimon, is there a chiyuv tvicha on the treifa? No, because it's a shchita she'eni beruya. So therefore, Reb Shimon, hamoicher treifa the divrei Reb Shimon. But could you do mechira? You cannot do tvicha. You cannot be over dal v'hei for tvicha. Could you become a chuyiv dal v'hei for mechira? Rabbi Yochanan Archayev, because obviously it's not linked. Rish Lakish Amar Potter, because since you wouldn't be mechuyev for dal v'hei if you shechted it, so too if you sold it, you're not going to be mechuyev dal v'hei. Rabbi Yochanan Amar Chayev, afagav the lesser b'tvicha, even though you wouldn't be able to be mechuyev dal v'hei for shechting a treifa, isei b'mechira. You could still sell this animal, and therefore you'll be chayev dal v'hei for mechira. Rish Lakish Amar Potter, given the lesser b'tvicha, lesser b'mechira. Since you would not be able to be mechuyev dal v'hei for a tvicha in this case, because it would be a shchita she'eni meruya, you won't be mechuyev if you sell it either. As Rashi says, "Vazul tamayu." They afflicable. There's a machlokes ibain and tavayu iloi if they are linked to one another. So Eser Rabbi Yochanan and Rish Lakish, Frank Rabbi Yochanan to Rish Lakish to prove that they're not linked, because the Brisa says, "Ganav tloyim v'tavcha." If you stole klayim and you shechted it, why doesn't it say umacher? Right? What's the difference between tficha and mechira? Or treifa, or if you sold the treifa umachra and you only sold it, mishalim tashlume arba v'chamish. So my love, Reb Shimon. Pashas is going according to Reb Shimon. Why is it going according to Reb Shimon? Because otherwise, why would it say treifa umachra? Why wouldn't it say treifa v'tafcha as well? So the fact that the Brisa picks tafka that you sold the treifa, Vice the Chosh is going according to Reb Shimon, who holds that if you shechted a treifa, there would not be a chiv dal vei. But nevertheless, the Brisa says if you sold that treifa, you would be chayiv dal vei. Alma, alpha gav the lesser betvicha, even though a treifa you wouldn't be mechuyev for dal vei betvicha because it's a shchita she'eni ruya. Isa b'mechira, the Brisa says you're chayiv dal vei. So you have a raya that they're not linked to one another. Amarlei, Rish Lakish could say you don't have a raya. Loi rabbanon, it's going according to rabbanon that shchita she'eni ruya is shma shchita, and in fact even the shchita of a treifa would have been mechayiv the gan of dal vei. Frank the Gemara, Rabbanon treifa b'mechira isa b'svicha lasa. So why did the Brisa chap on dafka a case of tvicha of the mechira by the treifa? It should have chapped in the case of tvicha by the treifa. The elamai zok Reb Shimon. You're going to say it's going according to Reb Shimon, and that's why it only chaps on mechira. But how are you going to explain the Brisa's selection by Klayim? Klayim b'tvicha isa b'mechira lasa. The same question that you asked me in reference to the tficha of a treifa, I'm going to ask you in reference to the mechira of a client. Ella, what are you going to tell me? Tficha mechira. By client, it must mean that either way you'll be chayiv, and therefore it's going according to Rabbanan. So Eimal Rabbananami Tana mechira v'udin l'tficha. When it says client b'tficha, it means client b'mechira as well, and when it says treifa b'mechira, it means treifa for tficha as well. It's going according to Rabban. Rabbi Yochanan and Amalach, that doesn't make sense. Hi, my. Iyamrit b'shlama, Reb Shimon. If you'll hold that the Brisa is going according to Reb Shimon, And because of that, by the treifa, it had to pick the case of mechira, not tvicha. Then I can argue, Aidi detana treifa bechada, since we used treifa with only one, meaning with only mechira, so therefore, when it picked Klaim, it was also bechada. Tana Klaim bechada. Ali Amrit Rabbanon, if our Bryce is going according to the Rabbanon, where either Klaim as well as Treifa, you'd be Mechuyev Daldvei both for Tvicha and for Mechira, then it should have mixed the cases together. Na'arvinu v'nisninu. Gun of Klaim, Utreifa, Tafchon Mecharim, Mishalom Tashlume Abba v'chamish. So Krishnakas Kasha, no, I'll live with that Kasha. But I still believe it's going according to the Rabbanon. Zok Rashi, Gun of Klaim, Mikivsa v'tayosh. But what type of Klaim are we talking about? One that was born from the union of a sheep and tayosh is a ram, I think, right? I don't know my animals that well, but we're going to see it's significant that Rashi picks these two animals because not all two animals can bear fruit. These two animals can bear fruit. And se means purebred, not Klaim. So over here, why are you chayv? By Dalvei it says se, which would mean that Klaim are not included in the rules of Dalvei. We're soon going to learn later on this Amud, there's a special ribui that includes Klaim, even though the word se in and of itself would not. My love of Shimoni, which is what Rabbi Yochanan suggested, so Rish Lakish says, no, it's going to go to Rabbanan, but since the Tana Treifa B'chada, Leimatzela Ruve Klaim Utreifa Lomisne Tvicha Umechira, V'tarbayu Ba'adadi, V'tzrich Lomisne Treifa B'chada, V'mechira, V'lebetvicha. Oh no, this is how Rabbi Yochanan wanted to explain the Bryce according to Rabbi Shimon. Since by Klaim it only was able to pick one, which was Mechira, Tanina Klaim B'chada, only Tvicha. But really Klaim could be both. The Alvagav Disa B'tarbayu, the Nokad B'tvicha, the Pasach B'kra B'reisha. Why did it happen Tvicha by Klaim? Because it says in the pasuk first v'tavchay and then umachar. Okay, so that takes us to the end of the discussion of Yochanan and Rish Lakish, whether or not you could be mechuyev for Tvicha of an animal if under that same circumstance you would not be mechuyev for mechira, like in our case where you can't sell an animal hektish, and vice versa, could you be mechuyev for mechira if under these circumstances the Tvicha wouldn't be mechayiv you because it was a trade. Okay, beautiful. Frek the Gemara. Klayim, how could we even entertain in this brisa a chiyav dalad v'hei on Klayim? Sexiv. It says se. The Amar Rava and Rava Taras. Ze bona'av. There's a binyan av. Kol makoim shenemar se. Anytime the Torah refers to an animal as a se, einoi elo lahayti is a Klayim. That excludes Klayim. So, you should not be mechuyev Klayim for a set, for a Klayim that came from a set. Zok Gemara shiny hacha by Dalad Vehei we have a special ribui. The Amar Kra Oi l'Rabbis es Klayim. Zok Rashi Oi. The pasuk says Shor Oise. The Amar beperik de il Shor de Seifa v'sed the Reisha miyaser. Right? We said the Shor of the Seifa and the Sed the Reisha is extra. If the second animal is extra, then the oi that separates them are extra as well. Does anybody remember what we learned out of the fact that Shor, the Seifa, and Seder Reish are extra? Remember, I don't remember what we learned from those 10 blot ago. 10 days ago was like 4 lifetimes in Daf Yomi, and in the Art Scroll it's like 27 lifetimes. Because there's like 50 pages in between. It was right over here, but the Gemara had it. So the Gemara said, you see from here, Shmamina service in media loy. How do we know that the Chiv Dalvei is only for Shor and Seh and not for some other animal? It's limited only to a Shor and Seh because it says Shor and Seh extra. Okay. Zok the Gemara weiter. Shiny hacha damakra oi l'rabbis is a klai. Frank the Gemara, b'chol oil Rabbi Zu. Is oil inclusive? Maybe oil is exclusive, and I'll show you that it is exclusive because we have a similar discussion when we're discussing what type of animals you're allowed to bring for a carbon. And the Torah says, "Shor oy kesef oy eis ki yavaled v'haya shivas yamim tachas imoy u'muyayim hashmini v'hala yeratza l'carbon ishal Hashem." So there it's talking about what type of animals are allowed to be brought as a carbon. And we learned Shor oy kesef. What is the oy? Prat l'klayim. So by carbon, oy excludes klayim. So how could you say oy by dalet vei includes klayim? Does oy add or does oy subtract? Oy is the second oy that it says in the pasuk by carbon. Prat l'nidma tells us that a nidma cannot be brought as a carbon. What is a nidma? Zok Rashi? The eina doim la'aviv v'loy la'imoy shebo me'ayel v'rachel v'doim la'ayiz. It comes from an ayel and a rachel, which is not klayim, but for some reason the animal came out looking not like its parents. For instance, if a regular Jewish couple gives birth to a black child, that's called a nidma, or maybe it's called klayim. I'm not sure. It all depends on whether or not he trusts her. If he trusts her, it's a nidma. If he doesn't trust her, then it might be klayim. Okay. Anyway, Amar Rava, oy depends very much on context. Similar to saying I want to slaughter Jews is also only anti-Semitic depending on the context. So oy also depends on the context. And that's why when she said what she said, everyone said oy, because that's mamish, it depends on context. That's mamish pshat. So what is it? When it talks about Geneva, what two animals is oy mechalik in between? The chsiv shor oy seh. A shor and a seh are so different. If they had a union, they would not produce any children. If they had a union, they would not give birth. It doesn't work. So therefore, by definition, shor and seh in that pasuk automatically excludes klayim. So if there's an oy there, it tells us to go the other way. Therefore, oy is l'rabbi's klayim. Gabi kochim dichsiv kesev ve'ez. A kesev and an ez, although they're not the same min, but if they have a union, they will produce offspring. Their oy l'mayatu. Their oy is l'mayat. Zokt Rashi. Gabi gnevi dichsiv shor oy the loyav eksiv oy l'rabbis. If it didn't say oy l'rabbis, lo nishtava klayim minayu. By default, I would have thought that there's no chi of daled vei for klayim. Because if a shar and the seg get together, it will not produce an offspring. Any bur and shava, because they have a different gestation period. The behema gasa yoyledes l'tisha. A behema gasa needs 9 months. V'daka l'chamisha. So therefore, they will not be able to produce together. Hilchach oy l'ribuya. So oy tells us to go the opposite way. That klayim is included in the chiyuv of daled vei. V'loy l'hoitzi dabalav lo yasi klayim b'mashmois tukra. Without the oy, by default, the psukim alone indicate that there is no chiyuv daled vei for klayim. Oy is being. Okay, now that we finished the daf, let's learn some of these Tosfos that are written by Mesiras Nefesh. So maybe if we learn Tosfos that are written by Mesiras Nefesh, we'll be zoichet to the same schus as they had for learning by Mesiras Nefesh. But not the schus that they got the next day. The schus that they got another book. Okay, zok the heilige Tosfos. Horg with time to zoichet. Time effect Tosfos. The midika amar hoyel v'hoysel shas hakosher. Mechlal it's mashma. The hashalav baspedi. It's a mashma that after you shecht a paraduma and you make a shrika, you would not be able to be paid. Who said? V'amai. Well, the para kache by the kabayis. The para has a din of kache by the kabayis. The paraduma. It's not a carbon. Uli Rab Shimon Islay, the kache by the kabayis. Lahoyu b'chlal hamadav aracha. There's a restriction about a carbon that you were paid. Let's say a carbon got a mum, and you were paid it, right? There's a restriction that you could only be paid it if you could stand it up to assess it. But if it's already shechted, you can't stand it up anymore. So therefore, it cannot no longer be nifta. So oy bezoi, it's kosher by the kabayis, and kosher by the kabayis does not need amount of aracha, and therefore you're able to be paid it even when it's dead. So oy bezoi, why can't you be paid it even after the shchita, after the zrika? When near the farish, the ha'ad the ketani. That it says, After Azah, you can no longer be paid. So Tosfos is asking, you should always be able to be paid. It's Kedushas by the Kabayis. Tosfos, no, even though it's Kedushas by the Kabayis, after you Zrikas Dam, you would not be able to be paid a paradum anymore. Then Svar should hey Baspadia. It's not mistabed you should be able to be paid. Who's a dama? Nevertheless, I'm sorry. Oh, that's the good one. That's why this is the next question. If you look in the time of the Masoichlin, you were able to be paid. If a Shimon holds that the moment you shechted, it's as if you already made Shrikas Adam, so then there's no Shasa Kosher anymore. Because as soon as you shechted it, it's like it was spritzed. The Koidim Kabbalas Hadam Lav Kamuzadami could appreciate Leil. We had some bigger Tosfos on Omid base as well. Before you're Makabal the Dam and the Keli, it's not ready to do Hazah. And therefore, if there's a step in between, you don't say it's Kamuzadami. And this is actually relevant to a Shailaf Allah Lamaisa. And that is, by some of the Hasidim, the girls used to get pearls in the Yichud room. And why do the girls get pearls in the Yichud room? Because after the chuppah, they were severely traumatized. Because after the chuppah, they would shave their heads clean like the skin on my palm.
I got a pearl.
You got a pearl under the chuppah. So the question is, they still do it, right? After the chuppah, but before the chuppah, she's not right. After the chuppah, before the yichud room, they shave off their heads completely, right? And then they're traumatized. So I guess they give them a booby prize. They give them pearls. Now pearls are outdated. They probably give them some other very expensive gift. So the question is, the night before their chasana, they toiveled. But normally your hair is not a chatzitza. But if it's hair that's coming off, it's a chatzitza. So how is it possible? How is it tefillah kosher? That is the shaila that came up.
At what point?
So the answer is that the devil is in the details. If immediately post tefillah, the hair is coming off, over there, maybe it would be chatzitza. But here they bedavka want to keep their hair on for the chuppah so they don't spook their chassan, right? So they're waiting for the chuppah to occur, and it's the next day. There you don't say chatzitza. There you don't say kala oimid lisroi kizartam. Similar to what Tosfos says. Similar to what Tosfos says that by Zrika, since there's another step in between, you need a Kabbalah until there's no hefsek anymore between what needs to get done and what you're going to do. You're ready to go do it right away. You don't say Kazarik dummy. So therefore, they want to tell too that by the hair as well, you don't say it's as if it's cut, and in fact it's not a chatzitz. Hikshar Rabbeinu Shmuel Bar Chaim. Lamali, the Hoysel Shasa Kosher. Why do you need that Shasa Kosher? There's another independent reason that would make it be Makabal Tumasayim. And what is that? There's a concept of the Chibas Hektish Machsharasa. The Baat Hektish is so dear that will give it a din of being Matama Tumas Eichlin, even though it's not an Eichlin. And you find that even a piece of wood will be Matama Tumas Eichlin because it's Chibas Hektish. Even the wood that you burn the mincha on and the levina, which are both non-edibles, they also have a din tumah. Why? Because of chibas hektish. So why do I need this kosher? At one point it could have been an oichel, even without being an oichel at all. You find when it's a kedusha is a goof of hektish, you find that it should be metama to masayich. Zaktoisus v'chitema de paralar b'shimin. Given the kedusha by the kabayisi lo shayach b'chibas hektish. Maybe this chibas hektish only applies to kedusha goof to a korban, but we know that a paraduma is only by the kabayis. The filo b'kachim is beach le mahani chibas hektish ela kishakacha kedusha is a goof b'chli sharis. Even if it's a korban that had to already been mukdash b'chli sharis. So maybe that creates chibas hektish, which paraduma doesn't have. Maybe that's why you need that it was once royu to become an oichel. That's wrong. Chibas hektish would definitely apply to a paraduma as well. Al korchach shayich b'para chibas hektish. Afilu Rab Shimon, even according to Rab Shimon, the Bereish Hamanachas from the Sachem, Parach Rab Shimon, the Gemara asked according to Rab Shimon, Noiser Upara, Noiser and Paraduma, Amai Mitama Tumasaychlin, why are they Mitama Tumasaychlin? Afra Ba'almuhu, they're earth. Why are they considered earth? Because they're about to be burned. The Chala Oimid, the Shrevka served on it. Umeshani, the Gemara answers in reference to Paraduma itself that we don't consider it earth. You know why? Because Chibas Hektish Machsharasai. So if you were already applying Chibas Hektish Machsharasai to Paraduma to tell us that it's not earth, it's still a Michael. So then why do I need the fact that it could have been a Michael? Chibas Hektish should make it into a Michael, which should make it be Metama Tumasaychel. Zok Taisis, V'anu Taima. The Avagav the Aimba Kiddush Kli. Now the Svara is why is it Taka Chibas Hektish? He didn't have Kiddush Kli, and Tosfos seemed to have mentioned earlier that you need Kiddush Kli in order to create that Chibas Hektish. Kiven the Kachem Bedekabah. You see, B'Kamokim Shaykh Bei Chibas Hektish. Kiven the Chatos Koyer Rachmana. The Torah refers to the carbon of the Paraduma as a Chatos. The Chol Inyonea Ke'en Avoidus Haguf Sheyesh Bazah Upsula Shalol Shema. There's so many similarities to a carbon. We'll treat it like this is guf, and you'll say chibas hektish. So if you say chibas hektish, why can't the chibas hektish make it that it's mitama to masayich? So the reason teretz is a shtickle logical calisthenics. Zok Tosfos the ein chibas hektish my elas elal shavia she'ein oichel ka'oichel. It can make a non-oichel into an oichel, but it cannot make it be mekabel tum. It just makes it into an oichel. K'gay noisar upara she'em chashuvim ka'afra. Right? All of these things are not even food items. They're other types of items. That, since chibas hektish, we treat it like food, which is a level up. Once the paraduma is an oichel. Why is it an oichel? Because of chibas hektish, elish ein mekabel tuma l'Rab Shimon, but it won't be mekabel tuma according to Rab Shimon. Mishum oichel she'ein ata yochal lachilu lacherim. Since this is a michael that you can't serve anybody else because it's usher. Lo yoyel chibas hektish lasay she'iser kemuter. So all the chibas hektish does is it makes it to an oichel, but it doesn't make it into an oichel that's servable. For that, you need that at one point it could have been serviceable. It could have been servable because it had a shasa kosher where you could have been pointed. So that is the first. This is the first chiddush that Tosfos tells us is that yes, there's the element of chibas hektish, but that will not make an oichel into an oichel that's servable, and therefore you need now, on the second Tosfos, we have only 3 minutes. Tosfos also brings up an important point. In Perek Oisav Espanoi in Chulin, Rashi asked a kash on this, and he asked, "Lama li kabbalas tuma? Why do I need this paraduma, which is an avela, right? Why do I need this oichel? What does tumas oichel mean? If I have an apple, which is an oichel, and it's touched by a sheretz, it's going to become tummy. I don't need that over here. You know why? Typically, the he gufa mitama adamu begodim. You know that the halach is anybody who touches the upper paraduma becomes tummy with a tumah chamura. An oichel is tumas rishon. If you touch it, a person can become a sheni. Can be mitama another oichel. Here we're saying it's a tumah chamura. If you touch the upper paraduma, not only are you tummy, you become an avatuma, and your begodim become a rishon tumah. So it has such a big tumah. Exactly what are we adding to it by giving it the status of tumas oichel? For teretz, look at his teretz. The Bechahai Gavna Mefarish Precreases Beperkdam Shchita Kagoin Shechipayu Hachos Mikabeya Batzik. What if you made a krapel out of this meat, and the batzik itself covers it over, so no one could touch the meat? You only could touch the meat by touching the outer surface of the dough. The problem is the dough is Hachos Mikabeya, which means it's less than the shear of Tumas Oichlin, right? Therefore, even Shabbos la'oichel, if you're going to consider that pachas mikabeya of the dough as an oichel, then mitzaref bahade batzik, it will be mitzaref with the batzik if the nevela is considered an oichel, then it becomes one with the batzik, and now there's a shear umbekabel high batzik tuma, and therefore this batzik, which is big enough of a shear now to accept the tuma from the nevela or from the paraduma, im yiga v'tuma v'touches tuma umetama shar oichel. So what Rashi is saying here is Rashi is not talking about it getting tumah from the nevela or from the paraduma that it's covering. Rashi is talking about it getting tumah from the outside, which is a little funny. Why do you need to go to the outside? You have a source of tumah right here, which Tosfos will raise. But the main point is that if the dough becomes if the dough could become a shear by being mitzaref with the meat, if the meat's also an oichel, then you have a critical mass enough for tumas oichel. Bilav oichelu, if it wasn't an oichel, loy mekabel high batek tumah, it wouldn't have been able to be mekabel tumah from anything, the less beis yura, because it's not big enough. Bichinagu be oichlin acherin, and if other oichlin now touch this batek, tahirin, there would be tar. She'eino again benevela, they're not touching the nevela, ela bebatek. At kan l'shoin. So Zok Tosfos Umash Ishkun Nevela Mishum that Allah decreases Kamer. Rashi is talking about a case of Nevela, but we can apply it to Paradum as well. Umashamu Makabel I bought Tumah Miga Tumah. Zok Tosfos I think that's extra because you have a Tumah right here near Larid the Ladok. Tahidi Chepel Babatak decreases Myri Sheish Kazais in the Nevela. There's a Kazais Nevela over there. Therefore, Benira Shetame Habatak with Nevela. It's true for the Kabetza. You don't need that something else that was tummy touched it. Kamoshi mitame the makamacher shekazais yochel liyos mitame wutzar. So the Yosy that we take out of here is tumas oichlin. It has to be a kabetza. But what does it have to be a kabetza for? Does it have to be a kabetza to become tummy? Does it have to be a kabetza to become tummy, or it becomes tummy even if it's tiny? But in order to give off tummy, in order to transmit tummy, it has to be a kabetza. That is the shaila. That is the shaila. So Rashi all over Shas has a shita that something can become tamei even if it's less than a shir kabetza. The whole discussion of needing a shir kabetza to be mitamet to is only to transmit tamei. But from Rashi's teretz here, you see that even to become tamei, it needs to be a kabetza. So what Tosfos tells us, it seems like Rashi is being chayzer over here. So Tosfos v'nira shechazer boy mishitasei so yerogel afarish b'chol mochay. It seems that the way Rashi explained this dough wrapped around the nevela seems to indicate that he's backing out from his svara that he says everywhere. The oichel pachas mikabetza mekabel tumah min atayra. He said that all over Shas he says that the oichel pachas mikabetza is mekabel tumah. So this dough would have been mekabel tumah no matter what. You only need the meat to be an oichel to allow this dough not to transmit tumah. But Rashi discusses it in reference to becoming tamei, so it seems like Rashi is being chayzer from a shita and Shas. So that's really the main takeaway that I want to take from the Tosfos is this machlokes between Rashi and Tosfos. That the tumas oichlin only applies to a piece of Michael that's a kabei or larger. Tosfos says that side to be mekabel, tuma, and side to transmit tuma. Rashi holds no. A oichel will be mekabel tuma, even a mashu, but in order for it to transmit tuma, it has to be at least a kabetza. Okay, we'll stop here and we'll be mamshich Bez Hashem tomorrow. Everyone should have a wonderful day.